Hello, everyone. We are back and we are wrapping up this portion of the devotional series on the parable of the sower today. We're going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 13 and Mark chapter 4, much like we did when we started this portion of the devotionals on the parable of the sower, because there's some really unique highlights in both of them that I want to bring out. We're going to be pulling it all together today, I hope, and if you haven't had a chance to catch up, I hope that you do, because there's a lot of great stuff about the parable of the sower. Let's jump into Matthew chapter 13, verse 23. Jesus says, "But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop." Now, in Mark chapter 4, verse 20, Jesus says, "Others, like seed sown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop." Now, both Matthew and Mark agree that the crop is 100 times, 60 times, or 30 times what was sown. The little nuances that are different is Matthew says, "Whoever hears the word and understands it." And if you'll remember from the first lesson on the parable of the sower, that the one who doesn't understand God's word is the one where has the enemy come and stolen from him. And Mark says that whoever accepts it, God's word. So it's hearing and accepting God's word that makes it fruitful in your life. Now, as we've been talking about this whole series about the parables, that there is a practical earthly application and a spiritual heavenly application, I want to give you the practical application like I've been doing first. And this is what I believe the practical application of the parable of the sower is. The totality of it is this: your attitude towards anything determines its effectiveness in your life. Let me say that again. Your attitude towards anything determines its effectiveness in your life. If you don't understand something, it's not going to be effective in your life, all right? If you do not put in deep effort into something, it's not going to be effective in your life. If you are distracted by other things, whatever you're trying to focus on will not be effective in your life. But when you understand it, when you accept it, when you put forth the effort, whatever it is, be it fitness or healthy eating or ministry or your job or your family or your boat or a project or work around the house or even things as little as doing laundry, when you accept it, understand it, and apply it, it's effective in your life. Now, the spiritual principle is exactly the same, except it has to do with God's word. The effectiveness of God's word in your life, the effectiveness of God's word in my life is largely determined by our attitude towards it. And this is a tough thing, because sometimes I have found out that what I wanted God's word to say, it did not say. What I wanted God's word to do, to affirm me, it actually didn't. So I had to change my heart, I had to change my mind, I had to change my thinking so that God's word could properly be applied in my life. If you don't understand God's word, the enemy is going to steal it. If you don't put in deep roots into God's word, as soon as persecution comes, it's going to dry up and go away. If you are distracted by television and podcasts and media and talk radio over God's word, then all of those other things are going to choke the life of God's word out of you. But if you receive God's word with a good heart, with understanding, accepting God's word for what it is, spirit and life, it will produce fruit in your life. I hope you are engaging in God's word with the desire for it to cause you to become more like Jesus. That's my prayer often when I read God's word. Lord, as I read your word, let it make me more like Jesus and less like myself. I'll see you Friday as we head into a new parable. God bless you. Have a great day.